Welcome back to the stage and to the closing plenary of this second day of the UGC Annual Gathering 2021. We opened last night with a reference to the UN Global Food Summit, first ever Global Food Summit that happened a couple weeks ago. We're closing with another momentous meeting this year, COP26, this year in Glasgow in a few weeks. The latest report IPCC just highlighted where we are in terms of climate change, and we are definitely on the wrong track. Universities are doing a lot. We need to work together. Of course, all this is part of UGC's mission. So to close and wrap up this, what has been a great event, I'd like to introduce Professor Ian Rowlands. He is the Associate Vice President for International at the University of Waterloo in Canada. He's also a professor in the School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability. And he will lead a very great panel on mapping international higher ed climate change networks. A crucial issue for our time, a crucial issue for this decade. Ian, thank you very much for joining us. Please take it on.
Arturo, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I'd like to begin by inviting you to reflect as we honor the land and the Indigenous heritage of the place on which the two Waterloo speakers are located today. The University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building. On behalf of both myself and my fellow Waterloo panelists, Jenna Phillips, I make this acknowledgement, recognizing that it's only part of a commitment to reconciliation. I commit to do more, and I invite you, wherever you are in the world, to reflect upon issues of importance to you. I am indeed so delighted to be moderating this closing plenary. Today, we're investigating the roles that universities working together can play to advance all the SDGs, but in particular, SDG 13. Our speakers come from 3 different universities in 3 different countries, and they'll be drawing upon a soon-to-be-published report that they've jointly produced. And as to Arturo's comments suggest, I'm sure the urgency of this issue isn't lost on our audience today. Arturo rightly flagged the recent IPCC report, which the UN Secretary General called a code red for humanity. And indeed, we're all looking towards COP26 and recognizing the urgent action that needs to be taken. Everyone needs to play their part, including higher education. And during the next half hour, we're going to investigate the state of global higher education climate networks in order to better understand where there are strengths, gaps, and opportunities. And we're going to stimulate discussion about how all of us, working individually, working collectively, can have even greater impact. Our panel today is made up of 3 wonderful speakers. Jenna Phillips from the University of Waterloo, previously a co-op student at the University of Waterloo's Sustainability Office. Jenna's work included major contributions to the report. And she's currently a 4th-year undergraduate student in the School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability, and the Sustainability Commissioner for the university. Netra Mittal is from the University at Buffalo, a senior majoring in economics and mathematics. Netra works as a student assistant for UB Sustainability, contributing to the university's climate action plan. And Anxo Sanchez from Universidad Carlos III de Madrid, a professor of mathematics at the Polytechnic School of UC3M. Anxo's one of the leading proponents and promoters of the university's Climate Strategic Initiative, a group of researchers committed to interdisciplinary research, specialized education, knowledge transfer, and policy advice on climate change. Welcome to all 3 of you, and welcome to everyone in the audience as well. And Jenna, let me, if I may, start with you. Can you share with us a little bit about what this project was all about?
Definitely, and I put together some slides for our audience to get a visual of what we did for this project. So as a group, first of all, can you see the slides okay?
Yes, they're coming through well.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, as a group of higher education institutions working towards climate action, we wanted to understand what other networks of institutions were doing towards climate action. So the past 8-9 months or so, we've been working together to explore what these networks or groups of institutions working together towards common goals have been doing related to climate action. So we were scoping the web using publicly available information to understand what networks were out there. We were looking at networks of institutions directly focused on climate action, or networks that were looking more broadly at sustainability but had climate action as a key pillar. And we were also trying to gear our research towards networks led by institutions, although we did have some networks where institutions were a main partner and they might have been collaborating with other groups such as local municipal governments or private industry or things like that. And just given the scope of our research as well as our personal capacities, we tried to keep our networks limited to a size of at least 15 participating institutions, again, just for capacity's sake. And the results of our research were that we found over 30 global climate action related networks with more than 6,100 members from around the world. And we used two different lenses, I'll call them, in order to analyze our results from these 30 networks. We wanted to see where these networks occurred and how far their reach was. So we found that majority of our networks, or 11 of them, were global, meaning they spanned all 6 continents. And we had a variety of networks that were also national, regional, which meant covering multiple countries within one continent, as well as intercontinental. So it was very diverse in terms of how far these networks were reaching, and it demonstrated how collaborative we can be in fighting for climate action. This map is one of the maps that came out of a result of our research when we were trying to understand where these networks were taking place. And as you can see, the darker areas are where there were more networks. So in general, we found that there were more networks taking place in North America as well as Europe. And there weren't too many networks located in Australia or Oceania, South or Africa or Asia. That's not to say that there weren't networks in those locations, but just given the information we were able to access online, this is what we were able to find. So that could be one of the limitations of our research, is that we were using publicly available information. And then the other lens that we wanted to use was to understand what these networks were doing. So we knew where they were, but what kind of work were they doing? And so we created these 6 set of focus areas with specific criteria, which you can see on the screen, that was related to the work that each network was doing. Now, each network could fulfill the criteria for multiple focus areas, which was the case in many situations. And we found that campus action and research were the top areas of focus for each of the networks. We didn't see too much involvement with community engagement or policy, or not even student engagement. But again, this could be reflective of certain criteria or limitations that we put on the scope of our analysis. And importantly, we also recognize that just because a network exists doesn't mean it's doing the equal amount of work as another network. So we wanted to create some sort of activity scale to rank how much work a network is currently doing. And so we created a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the most active. These networks are producing reports and updates regularly. They're hosting events, they're running active projects. And then 1 was they're not very active. So they might only be completing one of these things on the screen at a time. And this really gave us an idea of how active these networks are currently. And as you can see, a lot of networks are producing reports or publications or some kind of physical entity to represent the work and the research that they are doing. And overall, what our research found was that it really affirmed the idea that there are a lot of networks out there that are bringing higher education institutions together to take climate action. And what climate action looks like really depends on the institution's strengths or the network's strengths and their personal capacities. We also realize that it is difficult to understand what networks are doing out there because there hasn't been a centralized place for this research or for these networks to come together. And so that's what we tried to do with this. We tried to create a central database to understand what networks exist and what they're doing. And then recommendations with our research is that if you are an institution that is interested in getting involved in an existing network, or you want to create your own network, we really encourage you to see what's out there already, so that rather than reinventing the wheel and just doing the same work that someone else is doing, you can tap into these existing networks potentially and help amplify climate action initiatives around the world. And that is it for my little review. I will stop screen sharing.
Fantastic, Jenna. Thank you very much for that. It sounds like a wonderful report, a rich source of information and a comprehensive investigation as well. Congratulations to all three of you and your collaborators as well. Wonderful. And let's, as a group, dig into the report a bit more now. And let me ask you if you'd like to share, if you could share with us any nuances, caveats, limitations, things like that about the findings that Jenna shared. And Netra, if it's okay, I'd like to start with you with this question.
Yeah, of course. So I think that the network level focus does come with its constraints. That is, a network may be global and we've classified it that way, but the participation within this network may be highly skewed towards North America, for example, due to a culture of institutional commitment and availability of resources. So we do need another phase of network analysis to support our findings by looking at these individual institutions on a more micro level to account for a more nuanced perspective. And this will need further collaboration with the networks that we've identified to understand their membership, their needs, and their long-term goals. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. And Anxo, I'll invite you to reflect on the same. Think about the findings and any offerings you'd like to make at this time.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. As Jenna has said, it's a little bit difficult to appreciate the impact these networks may have on their own researchers, for instance. And for me, from the perspective of the Climate Strategic Initiative that has been established by Carlos III University, I believe that there's a way in which these networks can impact the work of the researchers by collecting all their skills and sharing them through the network. That would be very important, so people get to know other people that are doing the same things as them, other people that are doing complementary things to what they are doing. So they could, for instance, get together in joint project applications and establish specific alliances with partners. So for researchers, it would be very important if these networks translate also into a map of skills and things that one can do.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. And the three sets of contributions showing the wealth of findings in the report itself, and then the avenues for more investigation as well. And let me pick up on the conclusions and the results that were important to each of you, and seeing the so what of it, if you wish, and thinking about how networks involving universities can have impact that's meaningful to you, perhaps, or meaningful more broadly. And Jenna, can I start with you on this one, reflecting on the so what question?
Yeah, definitely. So I think our hypothesis going in was that there are a lot of networks out there doing work that may potentially be overlapping. And so this tends to stretch institutional participation quite thin because we all are doing the same work. So in terms of the so what and what this research means is that rather than creating more and more new networks that are potentially doing the same work, we are encouraging you to tap into networks that already exist to help consolidate and accelerate efforts towards climate action because so many of these networks already exist.
Wonderful. I think this report will be a useful resource for people universities seeing which network works well for them, perhaps, and so on as well. Great. And Netra, I'll turn to you. Your perspective on some of the so what's that struck you.
Yeah, so you might have noticed that there's a clustering happening at the network level in the global north. we would expect this disparity to exist even when looking at individual institutions that are participating. So within this consolidation of efforts that Jenna spoke about, it's crucial to ensure limited barriers to access in terms of costs and commitments for institutions that are trying to build a larger movement. And we need to ensure that there's also inclusivity within network collaborations and that the power dynamics are taken care of within these networks in areas of leadership, autonomy, with local chapters versus monolithic organizations. And lastly, for international cooperation, it's necessary to understand the decision factors involved for networks based on geopolitical and political considerations, coupled with different cultural interpretations of climate change, what it is, what it means to combat it. So an assessment of these factors would also have to be the next step.
Excellent, and thank you for that insight. The multiple dimensions characteristics of networks so important. And Anxo, your perspective on this, your reactions to the so what coming out of this report.
Yeah, I'd like to take it from what Jenna said about being a stretched thing. It's clear that if all these alliances are working on their own and they don't know about each other, it's very difficult that they have the resources to make meaningful impact. So their existence should be useful to help everybody focus, like joining the proper network or finding the proper, from my viewpoint as a research topic or research partner. So it's a little bit utopian to think that one can address all problems of climate change or SDGs things. So these networks can help us have impact by really showing us where we can be of use, instead of just running around like not knowing what to do and just trying to showing off.
Great, thank you for that. And all of the contributions are a nice segue into the next question that I'm going to ask, and that's namely, I'll take us down to the level of the individual university or higher education institution. There's this menu offering of networks out there. What messages should they be taking from this investigation? They may be thinking about joining a network, individual universities, and thinking about whether they should be joining, if they should be joining, which one they should be joining, what they should be looking for, or maybe they're in a network already and they're thinking, are we getting the value from this network participation that we want, and how can we make best use of this network? So put ourselves in the shoes, if you wish, of the individual universities, and any reflections you have on that. And Jenna, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned it a bit in my brief presentation at the beginning, but as an institution, first you should figure out what your strengths are. So what your institution is strong at. Is it research? Is it engagement? Whatever it may be. And then understand what your interests are and what your capacities are. And then once you have these factors figured out, you can then start searching for networks that exist and seeing if there are any that align with your interests and your capacities and strengths. And then we really encourage you to use these lenses that we discussed, such as geography and network focus, so that you can, again, find those ones that align with your interests and tap into those. And that will make it much more efficient for you as an institution, as well as those networks, because you're, again, not reinventing the wheel.
Great, thank you. And Anxo, I'll pass it over to you. From your perspective, any advice you would give to individual universities out there?
Well, Jenna has put it very clearly that you should really make a reflection of what you can do and what you want to do. And from there, you should look for a network that really aligns with your interests and capabilities. But having said that, let me also mention here that this thing of climate is really something that it's very diverse, in the sense that it's not the same problem here in Spain or there in Canada. There's different nuances to it, there's different things to do. So I think that one thing that you should also focus as a university is try to contribute diversity and benefit from the diversity. So for me, for instance, joining just a network of Southern European universities would be kind of pointless. I want to know more about what other places with different problems are experiencing. And that is where, as a university, you have to make a decision. Let's be diverse.
Thank you for that. And as I brought us down to the level of the individual university, let's go back up to the networks themselves and the number that are introduced and investigated in the report. Are there, from your experiences or from the report itself, the findings, are there messages for how networks can do better, how they can improve their activities, their operations for impact to advance SDG 13? And Netra, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I deeply second what Anxo just said. Given what we have is a global challenge, we need to make sure that we're building a global movement with a global representation on this issue. So reducing barriers to participation and decision-making is crucial to mitigate this issue of climate change on a large scale. The balance between global and also regional networks and how small collaborations can lead to larger achievements. So.
Great, thank you. And the point about the regional and global networks, and coming to my mind, universities may be part of national networks as well, and seeing how that fits into it as well. But Jenna, the same question to you, your reflections upon how networks might be able to, quote, do better going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Well, for new networks, if they are establishing themselves right now, or even if it's in the near future, it might be wise for them to consider integrating themselves into existing networks. So approaching those networks and saying, this is what we have to offer. If you already have a set of institutions that are planning on getting involved, you can bring them forward and say, we want to be involved in your network. So you are really synergizing your efforts. And then in terms of networks that are already existing, if you find that your network is, let's say, struggling to be putting these outputs together that I mentioned, such as reports, events, things like that, you might want to consider, again, consolidating with other networks or even differentiating your network. So understanding where are these gap areas that we have identified in our research? Where isn't there much work happening? Can we channel our efforts towards those so that we are diversifying, we are approaching climate action from all these different avenues and making sure that we are taking a holistic approach to climate action on the global scale?
Great, thank you for that. And I'll put a question to all three of you now, and drawing on your different perspectives. So two of you, Jenna and Netra, as students, and Anxo as a professor and a leader at a university, sort of your own experiences of the networks, of international engagement more generally. And I'd love it if you would share with us, the audience out there, sort of any perspectives as to how this has accelerated the things you've wanted to do in a university setting. And Jenna, I'll turn first to you. And I know you were involved while you were a co-op student in the development of this report as well. So feel free to draw upon that or your broader work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if there's one thing I could say about students and climate action, it's probably that they are some of the most passionate and eager people to get involved. They want the experiences. They want to feel like they are making a meaningful contribution, and they have the ideas and the creativity to bring forth imaginative solutions that others might not have considered. So as a co-op student myself, for 8 months, I was working on this project, and it was an amazing opportunity I wouldn't have had outside of the academic institution. And I'm really thankful to have been involved in it, and I'm really hoping that the work that I contributed is making a meaningful difference through the report and through this panel and moving forward. So I really encourage institutions and networks to bring in the student voice, to have them involved, ask them what their ideas are if they have feedback, because you might be getting those really creative, diverse inputs from the students, and you are giving them these really priceless experiences that they might not get anywhere else.
Great, thank you for that. And Netra, I'll put the same to you and ask you to reflect upon your own experiences as a student, your professional development, the value of networks, these kinds of connections.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jenna that there's a growing consciousness amongst people my age. Me, as a researcher in environmental and development economics, I've also taken part in many of these climate action movements that have been on campus, and I do know that my peers deeply care about these issues today. So these networks need to collaborate, need to reach out to this huge untapped potential among students and hear student voices and let them participate. and that help, and because this is all of our futures too. So, yeah.
Great, thank you for that. And Anxo, I'll turn to you now, a perspective of a professor, a leader at a major university. Over to you.
Well, the problem with faculty and professors like me is that we are also stretched thin. I mean, one should be doing excellent teaching, excellent research, applying for grants, doing paperwork for the university and whatnot. So even if you're willing to do a lot, you don't have the time, actually. And that brings me to two main reflections here. One, this type of work supporting these networks with important goals like climate should be recognized by the universities in the sense that you should get some relief from doing other things. That's one thing. And the other thing, and that I agree fully with Netra and Jenna, is that we should really partner with the students. We should, because they may have the time we don't for certain things, or they may even, as has been said, benefit from carrying out some work that could be supervised by professors or whatever. But we can't do this alone as professors. And it should not be something seen like top down, like faculty thinks something and asks the students, do this or do that. We should get to really work together. But that requires a little bit of extra time that we should be able to get from other activities.
Great, thank you for that. And it fits nicely the theme of connections of this panel, the connections across space, across geographies, also connections within universities between the different constituencies as well. And I'm afraid we've run out of time, and I'll just say a quick concluding remarks before I pass it back to Arturo. And just first of all, I'd like to thank the three of you and your collaborators for this fantastic discussion right now. Jenna, Netra, Anxo, thank you for your contributions to this panel and a rich investigation. And to the three of you and your collaborators at the University of Waterloo, the Universidad Carlos III de Madrid, and the University at Buffalo for undertaking this report. I understand it's going to be published later this year, and I think many in the audience will be very keen to see it, a rich set of resources for universities, for networks themselves, and for the broader ecosystem, as the importance of partnerships across so many domains is critical, most definitely. I know I'm looking forward to seeing how the three universities work individually and work collectively, moving SDG 13 forward. So let me conclude by also thanking the University Global Coalition for this outstanding meeting and for the opportunity for us to be part of it. We're very grateful for the opportunity to have a panel here and to share some perspectives with the audience today. So I'd now like to pass it back to our host, Arturo, for some closing comments. Arturo, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you so much to the four of you, Ian, Jenna, Netra, and Anxo. Great reflections. Wonderful to see faculty and students together at different parts of the world, of course. Representation is super important, and I think we have the best of it with the four of you. So thank you so much. We're coming to the conclusion of this great event. At least I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I would like to thank a few people, for sure, Georgia Tech, McGill University, and all universities represented by my colleagues at the organizing committee. I'd like to say a big thanks to a lot of great professionals at Georgia Tech who made this event technically possible. You've been superb. You've been a great source of support even when we're running around like headless chicken because we cannot find the button or we cannot get on stage or on the session. So thank you so much. I would like to give a shout out to my colleagues at the organizing committee. I'll name them because they've worked very hard the past year to put this together. Joanna Rugulska from University of California, Davis, Aphrodite Anastasaki from UNITAR, Sally Crimmins Vilela from State University of New York, Bemi Disu from Carnegie Mellon University, Africa, Leah Nichols from George Mason University, Emini Mavi, Rena Platz, Yael Bali from Koç University in Turkey, my colleagues Amanda Wendt and Luis Guillen from Earth University, my friend Felipe Castro from Universidad de Los Andes, and Shin Kian from Jones Day University. I do want to highlight the contribution of one individual. Drew, can you come on stage, please? Thank you.
Didn't know it was going to be on stage. Might have dressed up.
Well, that's a good thing. Drew Cartwright from Georgia Tech has been the heart and core of a network of committed leaders who put all these together. Top professional that she is, she managed to lead the production of what has been a very successful event. And Drew, I want to publicly thank you for your leadership in all this process. You've been a great leader for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arturo, for all of your hard work. To the conference committee, thank you so much. A wonderful job, brought together a lot of amazing speakers from around the world, and it was great to hear from you all about the work that you're doing. Thank you to Georgia Tech Professional Education for the technical side of the show, and we're looking forward to engaging with everyone further. So please reach out to us. We're at universityglobalcoalition@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat. And please reach out to us. Let us know what you would like to see from UGC. We're a member-based organization, and we want to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you. So as we close the event, let me share just quickly a few takeaways. I leave energized. We've shared a lot yesterday and today. First, ideas. What did it take to step up the contributions we are making from universities around the world? And there are many we've heard and seen the examples that we've witnessed in this past couple of days. But also feelings. And I think that's very important because in the end, reason guides us, but the power of our work comes from feelings, comes from the passion we feel for our causes. And I think I've at least felt energized on that dimension as well. It's important to know that we're not alone. It's important that we recognize our peers and our like-minded and like-hearted colleagues. I started last night saying that we need to do more. I think that's true. The ones connected here are already doing something, sometimes a lot, but we need more. And the way to do that is bringing in more people, as Ru was saying, connecting through UGC and other networks, creating a movement where 1 + 1 is 3, 4, 10, 1,000. We need to be exponential. So again, thank you for being here. We'll see you in March for the Geneva Trialogue. We'll see you in about a year for the 2022 annual gathering. And I wish you just all the best in your endeavors and in your private lives. Have a great day, evening, night, wherever in the world you are.